Onerous taxation is absolutely theft of private property. The federal government does not produce one product. They redistribute wealth through taxation. They only raise revenue through taxes and tariffs. And if you look at the Laffer curve, taxation destroys twice as much wealth as it redistributes.
One $20 investment for 98 years at 20%. So think in your mind how much money you'd end up with. $1,154,249,000. So one $20 investment over this time frame would be over $1 billion. Now, why did I pick 98 years? Because something happened 98 years ago. 98 years ago, they started a temporary, never to exceed 7% income tax that has neither been temporary nor 7% since, right? We've had this thing all over the board. We can see we had an average top marginal of 58.8%. So if we just use 50% as a guideline, how much money are we going to end up with if we had a 50% tax? So we've got $1,150,000,000. We put in a 50% tax, and we end up with $227,000. So a 50% tax turned $1,150,000,000 into $227,000. How's that possible? Who got the difference? The other $1,150,000,000. The federal government, right? No, look what the federal government's cut was. The same $227,000. What happened to the difference? It evaporated. It totally evaporated. It went nowhere. There was an economist in fact, he was Reagan's primary economist, named Art Laffer. Have y'all ever heard of Art? Art created what's called the Laffer curve, right? This is what the Laffer curve was based on, this exact issue right here. What Art said was, we have taxed the American people at such a high rate that we're actually killing the goose that's laying the egg. We've taxed them so high, there's not enough money left to create revenue to cause taxes. And what he said was, if we reduce income tax, we will actually increase revenue. How's that possible? Well, let's see. Change this from 50 to 40. If we went to 40, we'd certainly be happier. Rather than 227, we've got 1,311,000 now. But look what happened to the government portion. They went from 227 up to 887. A huge increase for the federal government side. Really? What if we went to 30%? Federal government goes to 3 million. We go up to 7 million. What if we go to 20%? 41 million. For us, 10 million for the federal government. There's a crossover point. Based on a 20% rate of return, the crossover point's around 7.5%. What's interesting is, based on a 10% earnings rate, it's about 14.5%. What have they been talking about with a flat tax? 15%. Have they been talking about that was going to raise revenue? Yes. Were they laughed at by everybody else saying you can't lower taxes and increase revenue? Yes, you can. You can't do it in the year that you do it, but over time it will exceed it. And they have taxed us so heavily. See, think about what's happened. Because they taxed us so heavily, we didn't earn enough money on what was left over to create a tax the next year. And by reducing the taxes, and there is a crossover point, but by reducing the taxes to a point, they actually increase the revenue over time. So 6.5, somewhere along in there, below that, they're actually earning less money. Again, based on a 10% rate of return, it's around 14% or so. Below that, it actually starts to be less, and above that, it starts to be less. It's pure waste. I mean, look again at the amount of money that was just totally destroyed. I mean, it'd be one thing if the federal government got it, if somebody got it. But because of the way taxes work, they totally destroy wealth. Because the money wasn't there left in the account to grow, it never was created. People just don't realize, guess what? You're not in that group this year, but it's all that is a foot in the door, because that's a smaller number of people, and it's going to get you in the long run.